Archaeologists have discovered a huge ancient city hidden underground in Mexico, which may give a better understanding of the Maya civilization.
The Maya civilization disappeared centuries ago, leaving behind silent temples and endless questions. But now, a groundbreaking DNA test has uncovered something shocking, something that could completely change what we know about human history. Deep inside a sealed chamber, scientists uncovered ancient remains that didn't match anything they'd ever seen. The DNA within these bones contained an impossible sequence, one that shouldn't exist in humans at all. This isn't just a discovery, it's the beginning of a revelation, one that hints the Maya may have been connected to something far beyond this world. It began in the Petén Basin of northern Guatemala, one of the densest, least explored regions of the ancient Maya world. A team of researchers working on a restoration project near the great city of El Mirador used ground-penetrating radar to map the structures buried beneath the jungle floor. What they found defied logic: a geometric void, perfectly circular, hidden more than 40 feet below the pyramid's foundation. Nature doesn't create perfect circles. At first, they assumed it was a natural cave, but as they dug deeper, they struck stone that didn't belong there. The blocks were unnaturally smooth, cut with machine-like precision and sealed with an adhesive stronger than modern cement. Then came the real discovery: a sealed doorway. It was made of a single slab of limestone, marked with faint carvings, symbols that didn't match any known Mayan script. Some looked older, resembling pre-Olmec designs, while others seemed entirely alien. Even their instruments began to malfunction. The slab emitted unusual magnetic readings, as if something metallic was hidden inside the stone. After days of delicate excavation, they finally broke through. A rush of ancient, compressed air escaped, followed by an eerie silence. Inside lay a perfectly round chamber, roughly 23 feet wide. The walls shimmered black, covered in a glass-like substance that resembled obsidian, but it didn't reflect light. Instead, it seemed to absorb it, swallowing the glow from their lamps. The air was unnaturally cold, and every sound seemed to vanish inside the room. At the center stood 3 stone pedestals. Upon them sat the remains of 3 individuals, cross-legged, perfectly arranged as if in meditation. Around them were jade ornaments, metallic discs, and fragments of crystal. But what most people overlooked at first was the most astonishing detail of all. The bodies themselves were preserved far beyond what should be possible. Whatever was hidden in that chamber, whatever left that DNA, was not entirely human. The site was in perfect condition, completely untouched by decay, something that shouldn't even be possible in the humid jungles of Central America. But the real mystery wasn't the chamber itself. It was the bodies inside. Their skulls were unusually elongated. At first, the team thought it might be from head binding, a cultural practice known among the Maya. But a closer look proved otherwise. The bone density and flawless symmetry showed no signs of artificial shaping. This wasn't cultural. It was biological. It was in their genes. Then came the shock that changed everything: the carbon dating results. Samples taken from organic fibers inside the chamber came back as approximately 12,400 years old. Let that sink in. These remains were thousands of years older than the Maya, older than the Olmecs, even older than any known civilization in the Americas. They belonged to a time before recorded history itself. That discovery alone could have rewritten the history books, but what happened next went far beyond archaeology. When the remains were taken to the lab for DNA testing, the team found something they couldn't explain. The first tests seemed normal. The mitochondrial DNA matched haplogroup A2, common among indigenous peoples of the Americas. But when they dug deeper into the genome, the sequencing began to fail. Large sections of DNA simply refused to align with any known human reference data. At first, they assumed contamination, but the same anomaly appeared in all three individuals, exactly the same way. The strange code was located in the so-called non-coding regions of the DNA, the part scientists once dismissed as junk. But within that genetic junk, they found something astonishing. A repeating pattern, a sequence too precise to be random. It wasn't a mutation, it was mathematical. When the pattern was mapped, it revealed a ratio that mirrored one of nature's most fundamental laws, the Fibonacci sequence, the same spiral found in galaxies, seashells, and the structure of life itself. It was a code. Something that shouldn't have been possible, a message hidden inside DNA that was over 12,000 years old. The team labeled it Sequence X473. What they discovered was unlike anything seen before, part human, part something else. But this code wasn't random. It matched a pattern. That's when the story turned from mysterious to deeply unsettling. The DNA wasn't just ancient, it was active. Independent tests at another university confirmed it. The strange strands of sequence X473 emitted faint, biophotonic energy. When exposed to ultraviolet light, they actually glowed. The wavelength of that glow was identical to certain deep-sea bioluminescent organisms. But how could human remains buried in a sealed jungle chamber do that? The scientists compared the sequence against every known genetic database, modern, ancient, terrestrial, and microbial. Nothing matched. The DNA didn't belong to any known species. It was a hybrid, so precise and structured that it looked engineered. Then came the breakthrough that tied everything together. Back at the dig site, researchers were enhancing the images of the strange carvings on the limestone door, the spirals, the star-like shapes, the complex geometric designs. When they sent those glyph patterns to the genetics lab, the result left everyone speechless. The micro-patterns within the DNA, the arrangement of its base pairs, perfectly mirrored the spiral symbols etched into the stone. This wasn't chance. It was deliberate. Whoever built that chamber 12,000 years ago didn't just decorate it, they encoded their symbols into living cells. That realization forced a senior geneticist on the team to propose something extraordinary, and soon after, that theory was classified. His hypothesis? The sequence wasn't biological at all. It was data storage. The DNA itself was a kind of organic hard drive, carrying non-biological information hidden within its genetic code. When the team translated parts of the sequence into binary data, they uncovered repeating numerical constants, values that precisely matched astronomical ratios, including the orbital relationship between Venus and Earth. This changed everything. That sealed chamber wasn't a tomb. It was an archive. And the beings preserved inside weren't just human. They weren't just people. They were living archives, human books, carrying within their very genes the astronomical knowledge of a forgotten age. Even their bones told a story that didn't fit our world. The isotopic composition of their calcium was slightly off, indicating they had lived in an atmosphere richer in oxygen, conditions that hadn't existed in that region for over 10,000 years. So who were they? A lost branch of humanity? Survivors of a pre-Mayan civilization? The truth turned out to be even more astonishing. The mysterious genetic signature, sequence X473, wasn't unique to those three individuals who died 12,000 years ago. It wasn't extinct. When researchers ran one final comparison against modern DNA databases, they found something remarkable, a faint but definite match. The sequence still existed, hidden, dormant, within a few people alive today. They called them guardians of the old blood. The database showed low-frequency matches linked to samples collected decades earlier for unrelated studies, taken from small, isolated highland communities in the Yucatan Peninsula. These remote populations lived far from cities, preserving ancient customs and oral traditions that had survived almost unchanged for centuries. When new DNA samples were tested, the results confirmed it. Traces of sequence X473 still lingered in a small percentage of people there, and its effects were subtle but extraordinary. In laboratory tests, cells containing X473 showed faster tissue regeneration and unusually high neural activity linked to memory and learning. These same populations were known to have unusually strong immunity to several infectious diseases. But the real revelation came from their culture. Anthropologists who interviewed the elders heard stories that sounded eerily familiar. They spoke of being keepers of the old blood, guardians of a sacred lineage. Their traditions warned against marrying outsiders, not out of prejudice, but to preserve balance. Without realizing it, they had been protecting a genetic legacy. When the researchers showed them enhanced images of the spiral symbols carved into the ancient chamber, several elders recognized them instantly. They called it the breath of the sky. To them, it wasn't mythology. It was memory. A memory encoded in their blood, carried forward from an age before the Maya ever existed. Yet the mystery only deepened. Broader genetic surveys revealed faint traces of sequence X473 scattered across the planet, in small pockets of the South Pacific, the northern Andes, and even among certain Arctic peoples. There was no evolutionary link, no common ancestor. The sequence hadn't evolved, it had appeared. It looked intentional, as if someone or something had inserted this genetic code into scattered human groups across vast distances and time. The pattern was becoming clear. The DNA, the ancient remains, and their living descendants were all part of a massive, interconnected system. And if the DNA was the software, then something else had to be the hardware. That answer, as it turned out, lay buried just a few miles from the chamber, and whatever it was still active. Then came the pulse from deep underground. While the geneticists were unraveling mysteries hidden in the blood, the remote sensing team made a discovery of their own. Beneath the dense jungle canopy, buried under layers of volcanic ash and limestone, they detected another anomaly, this one far larger than anything before. It was perfectly circular, a massive ring, nearly 300 feet wide, hidden beneath the earth. At first, they thought it might be a sinkhole, but the data told a different story. This wasn't a natural formation. It was engineered. Core samples confirmed the impossible. The structure was made from a metallic alloy containing titanium, vanadium, and iridium, metals that require extreme heat, thousands of degrees, to forge. Embedded around it was fused volcanic glass, melted and crystallized at temperatures over 3,000 degrees Celsius. No known ancient civilization could have created something like this. This wasn't a ruin, it was technology. And then they heard it, the faint hum. Magnetometric readings showed the ring was emitting low-frequency electromagnetic pulses, steady, rhythmic, and repeating every 11 minutes with perfect precision. It wasn't random. It was a pattern. The team was stunned. What were they looking at? A machine, a generator, an ancient observatory? The readings hinted that the structure extended far deeper than their scanners could reach. Whatever it wasn't just buried. It was alive. They began to map the pulse, translating its electromagnetic frequency into numbers. That's when the realization hit them like a shockwave. The pulse pattern from the 300-foot metallic ring matched exactly the mathematical ratio found in sequence X473, the same mysterious genetic code found in the guardians of the old blood. It wasn't a coincidence. The machine and the DNA were resonating at the same frequency. It was as if the structure itself was communicating with the blood. The ancient ring beneath the jungle wasn't just technology, It was a beacon, and it was talking to the descendants of those who carried the code. That was the moment the theories shifted, from the idea of a lost civilization to something far more extraordinary. What if the machine wasn't simply communicating with the DNA, but powering it? Or worse, what if the people themselves were the power source, a living network, a biological energy system designed to keep an ancient machine in standby mode? And then came the most unsettling theory of all. What if the ring wasn't sending a message at all, but an instruction? A command, written in electromagnetic code, directed at those who carried sequence X473, telling their DNA to change, to awaken. To find answers, researchers went back to the artifacts from the first chamber, especially a fractured jade tablet discovered near the remains. Once decoded, its carvings revealed something astonishing. It was a star map. But not of the sky we see today. It depicted the heavens as they appeared 12,000 years ago. That date should sound familiar. It aligns exactly with the Younger Dryas, the period when a catastrophic event, possibly a comet impact or a massive solar flare, brought on a sudden ice age and nearly wiped out early civilizations across the planet. The map highlighted the Pleiades star cluster, long revered by the Maya, but it also showed another destination, a swirling path leading from our solar system to a dense region of interstellar dust in the Taurus constellation, about 1,500 light-years away. Ancient inscriptions identified this region as Chi'an Hal, meaning the Sky River. It wasn't a destination at all, but a corridor, a cosmic pathway, possibly a stable wormhole. The glyphs paired this Sky River with symbols for arrival, teaching, and blood. They spoke of the Bakab Chan, those who came in light, the Sky People. Now, connect the pieces. According to the tablet, the Sky People arrived around 12,000 years ago, exactly as Earth was collapsing into chaos. They didn't come from Taurus. They came through it, traveling the Sky River. They found a dying planet beyond saving, but perhaps not beyond preserving. Maybe they couldn't rescue the world, but they could ensure something survived. They became not gods, but genetic engineers. They built the massive 300-foot ring, this beacon, this biological interface, and buried it deep beneath the jungle. Then they altered the DNA of the remaining humans, embedding within them sequence X473, a genetic signal, a biological alarm clock. They created a bloodline meant to guard their technology, to wait until the right moment. For over 12 millennia, the system stayed dormant, pulsing faintly beneath the earth, while its carriers, the guardians of the old blood, lived unaware of what they were protecting. But the question remains, what is it waiting for? The return of its creators, or for their descendants to finally understand and activate it? And if that ancient code truly begins to awaken, are the ones who built it really gone? Or are they already on their way back?